On behalf of all assembled here today, I should now like to invite our newest alumnus, Dr. Robert McEwen, to address Convocation.
Thank you, Dean Davidson, for those kind words. Chancellor Cowan, President Chakma, faculty members, graduands, I'm trying to get used to that word. I'm told that's before you graduate, and distinguished guests. I'm deeply honored to receive this honorary degree from Western, and I'm very privileged to be sharing this convocation with you. I'm really excited about being back on campus. I have great memories of being here, but I want to share an experience with you that had a big impact on my life. But at the time, I didn't recognize its significance. It was a seed or an idea that was planted during a lunch that I had with my Biz 250 prof. And it was one Friday during my last year. And he asked me about my plans. And I told him my girlfriend and I were going to the Gaspé to study French for all summer long. And after that, I was thinking about doing an MBA. I'm not certain if he was underwhelmed by my plans, or he saw some potential, latent potential, when he asked if I'd ever considered running for Student Council President. The deadline for nominations was the following Monday. Over the weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about this idea, and by Monday morning, I decided I wanted to jump into the race. It was a crowded field, and there were 8 people running. So I spent the first 2 days at the Student Council office immersed in reading the council minutes, getting to know the issues, the finances, and thinking about a campaign strategy. I found the campaign process really energizing, compelling, and I wanted to do more of it. When the votes were counted, I came in second, and I thought, hey, not bad. Not bad for a late entry, and I'll do better the next time. I was hooked. I was changed. Going forward, I began looking at the world differently and decided to look for opportunities to take positions of responsibility. I abruptly changed my plans, and the day after my last exam, I started work on Bay Street. My boss consoled me by saying not to worry about missing the summer in Gaspé, because soon I'd be making so much money that I could easily afford to take my girlfriend and myself to Paris for lunch. For the next 3 years, I worked researching gold mining companies and as a retail broker, and I became infused with the libertarian ideals of small business, of gold being the only true store of value, of governments having a history of debasing currencies, essentially stealing from their citizens. And the outlook for the price of gold looked great. Up until the middle of the second year, business was booming, I was making good money, and then suddenly the market dropped out of the gold. The price of gold and gold equities fell by more than 50%, and the near term seemed quite bleak. I found myself in what I'd studied in economics, the downward leg of a business cycle. It was disorienting, and as I said, it seemed really bleak. At that point, I decided it was a good time to go back and do my MBA. I applied to the top US schools, and they said no. I applied to Western, and they also said no. And that was like a slap in the face. I was accepted into the Schulich-Laval joint venture program, and when they called for people to step up for class representative, I was like a moth drawn to the flame. And I campaigned and won that role. About 3 months later, the president of the Student Council came to me and asked me if I'd run for his job, which I did, and I won. So I felt, when I was looking for a job and thinking about jobs after I graduated, I felt my best chance of getting the best jobs were to think of myself as a product on the shelf in a supermarket. Using that analogy, I needed to differentiate myself by having an eye-catching package, occupying lots of shelf space, and be at the right height above the ground, in that case, the supermarket. During my MBA, I set out to differentiate myself in a number of ways. In addition to being president of the Graduate Business Council, I also worked as a small business consultant and served on an advisory board to the deans. And that, coupled with my past work experience and some athletic awards, was enough to help me stand out in the crowd. At the time, I realized an important truth, and that was, by accepting greater responsibility, you can gain greater control of your future. You all have the potential to create your own future. The determining factor will be your attitude and your belief in yourself. And Henry Ford once said, and I think he summed it up very well, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. My strategy to differentiate myself worked well. I received multiple job offers. I accepted the one that allowed me to start 6 months after I graduated. And I used that 6-month time to backpack around the world. And my trip was like stepping into a picture in the National Geographic and throwing away my watch. It was so memorable, it was so educational, it was so revealing. Before I left, my friends said, "You're going away for 6 months? That's so long." And it was too long to be away, they said. However, when I returned, I saw very little had changed in their lives, but my life had been so enriched by this wonderful experience, and the vivids today are still so vivid. So I highly recommend to all of you that you seriously consider doing such a trip, and not to the popular tourist destinations, but to the real world. You'll come back with so many ideas about the splendor and diversity of the world, of global competition that we're going to face, of opportunities that present themselves to you, and with insights into the geopolitical forces that are at work in the world. This travel will also show you that most people in the world want a peaceful life. I came back thinking how fortunate we are to live in Canada. And after such a trip, I'm certain you will all agree. Today, however, I'm concerned. I'm concerned that we could lose the life we have in Canada, because I believe Canadians are too complacent, too disinterested, and too uninformed about the economics of running a large organization such as our country. As you leave Western, I sincerely hope that you take an active role in and interest in our political system. All Canadians have a responsibility to protect this democracy by voting for leaders and representatives who have a record of achievement, who are honest, have integrity, and are competent. As a country, we need to be much more agile in order to quickly adapt to the changing global economy. Over the next 20 years, the retirement of the baby boom generation is going to open up the job market for you. The workforce is going to be wide open for those of you who are ambitious and have the relevant skills, the skills that you've acquired here at Western, to put to work. I think it'll be a tremendous opportunity for career growth and innovation. Before I close, I have 4 books I'd like to recommend to you. The first one's called The Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay. And in it, the message is that neither education nor wealth is sufficient protection from the madness of the crowds. You get swept away. And he does a wonderful job of going from about 1100 AD up to his time in the mid-1800s of showing the manias that swept through the financial markets, the political scenes. The next book is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, and it warns of the tendencies of governments and for government overreach and repressive regimentation by liberal democracies. The third is 1984 by George Orwell. And that's about disinformation, screen culture, and constant surveillance, which I think is very relevant in our hyper-connected world today. And the fourth is called The Future is Better Than You Think. It's by Peter Diamandis, and the title says it all. Remember the seed I spoke about about changing my life's direction? I'm delighted to say that it started right here in Western. Good things happen here, and I hope Western has inspired you with something powerful. Best wishes for a life of much success. Thank you.